Okay. Today's topic is multinational capital budgeting. So today would be a short, relatively short session. Yeah. So multinational capital budgeting. This is we know the domestic capital budgeting. So the capital budgeting is the process of analyzing and evaluating all potential capital projects to be included in the company's future like growth plan. So here we do, we analyze the cash flows, and based on the cash flow analysis, we evaluate each capital project and then make our conclusion whether each capital project is profitable or not, attractive or not. Right? So that's the quite important process. This is important for overall company, overall subsidiary or parents company. So this is part of important executive decisions, right? Executive decisions. Uh, okay, here a couple of the important thing is that subsidiary versus parent perspective, which one would be appropriate and which one should be primary perspective. So it depends on tax differentials, and it should factor into several factors like tax and taxation and restrictions on remitted earnings and exchange rate movement. But the correct appropriate answer would be um, that the statement there. Okay, Rachel, can you read this one here?
Do you just want me to read what's in red?
Yeah, in red, yeah.
Okay. Parent perspective is appropriate when evaluating a project because the parents, shareholders, are the owners, and any project should generate sufficient cash flows to the parent to enhance shareholder wealth. One exception is when the foreign subsidiary is not wholly owned by the parent.
Okay, all right. You understand that, right? So, the shareholders, the parent, the shareholders of the parent company, they are the owners. They are the owners of the corporation. They are the owners of this, foreign subsidiaries. So, the maximizing those shareholders' wealth, that should be the primary. That should be the optimal goal of the corporation and the subsidiary. So, there should be the parent perspective should be the right and appropriate criteria there. One exception is that when the foreign subsidiary is not wholly owned by the parents, it's like joint venture, the joint venture, or like joint venture with the other government, the foreign government, then this one, the parent perspective may not be the appropriate perspective there, right? But otherwise, parent perspective should be the right way, right perspective there. Okay, now when the company create this the cash flow earnings, cash flows here, the first one they have to do is, if you look at the table, I mean the graph, the first one they have to do is to pay corporate taxes, right? Corporate taxes, that's the first one to come. And after tax cash flows to subsidiary, the next one, the subsidiary will retain some portion of the earnings for its project or its future, right? So it's called retained earnings to subsidiary. That's the second. And the third one, now after that, after corporate tax and after the retained earnings, then the next one, the remaining cash flows, that cash flows will be remitted to the parents. However, there is some government regulation on this remitted cash flows. So the government, they will like with withhold some taxes on this cash flow remitted by, to be remitted by subsidiaries. So government withholding, that's a third one to come. And after that, after tax, after the retained earnings, after withholding, then the remaining will be remitted to the parent. But up to this point, this cash flow is these cash flows are in the foreign currency. So there should be conversion of this cash flow to US dollar, right? US dollar. And then the converted US dollar cash flow is the cash flow to the parent company. That's the process of remitting earnings to parents. There are several inputs to multinational capital budgeting, initial investment, price and consumer demand quantity, and cost, tax law, remitted funds, exchange rate, salvage value, and required rate of return as a discount rate. Required rate of return will be used as discount rate. So these are major input in the capital budgeting, multinational capital budgeting. So case number one. This is a typical, simple, straightforward the capital budgeting for multinational corporation. So this Spartan company plans to develop a subsidiary in Singapore that would manufacture and sell tennis rackets locally. All right. The information, this projection information is initial investment 10 million Singapore dollar. Wait a second. 10 million is, no, wait a second. You have to change this one here. It's not 10 million Singapore dollar. It is US dollar, right? It is US dollar. Okay. US dollar, 10 million US dollar. Okay. And price and consumer demand. So year 1 and 2, they expect about 60,000 units at the price is $350 per unit, which looks quite, Singapore dollar, okay. So still it's pretty good. I mean, year 3, 100,000 units at the 360 Singapore dollar per unit. Year 4, 100,000 units at 360 Singapore dollar. And cost, variable cost is year 1 and 2, $200 per unit. Year 3, 250. Year 4, 260. Fixed cost, 2 million Singapore dollar per year plus depreciation, 2 million Singapore dollar. Tax law, 20% income tax, and remitted fund, 10% withholding. I told you, right? Government withholding, 10% on the remitted fund. Exchange rate is expected. Exchange rate is 50 cents per Singapore dollar. Salvage value 12 million Singapore dollar. Required rate of return is 15%. Okay. This is directly from the textbook. So 1 through 16, that's the from textbook there. If you look at this one here, just demand the quantity 60,000, 60,000, 100,000, 100,000, and price per unit, 300, 350, and 360, 380. So just straightforward. So total expected projected sales revenue is this times this one, 21 million, 36 million, 38 million Singapore dollar for each year. So we have our project life of 4 years, right? Variable cost per unit, 200, 200, 250, 260. So total variable cost is, variable cost per unit times the quantity. So we get this. And annual lease expense, the fixed cost 1 million. The fixed annual. Okay, annual the expense is 1 million, and then the depreciation depreciation is $2 million. So total expense is 16 million, 29 million, 30 million. So that's the one. So you match revenue and the cost you get before tax earnings here, right? 21 minus 16, that's 5 million. So 5 million, 7 million, 8 million that way. Now for this one here, you have to pay, tax, corporate tax. So that's 20%. So after tax earnings is 4 million, 5.6, 6.4 million. And then what do you do? That one here. Now, one item here, depreciation is not cash flow, right? Even though it's part of the fixed cost, is not cash flow. So you have to add it back here. So to calculate net cash flow to subsidiary, you add 2 million depreciation. So we have 6 million, 7.6, 8.4 million. That is the net cash flow to subsidiary, right? So that is the amount that the subsidiary can remit to the parent company. However, there's a 10% government withholding, right? So 10%, you have to subtract 10% of it. So Singapore dollar to be remitted after tax, after everything, and including withholding, and then we have 5.4 million, 6.84, 7.56 million. And then at the end of the project life, you have 12 million salvage value. So you have to include that to this one here. So that's total is the cash flows to be remitted, right? So starting from there. Now, up to this point, the total available cash flows to be remitted to parent company in Singapore dollar are this. Now, as I said, you have to convert this one into US dollar, right? So the exchange rate, projected expected exchange rate is 50 cents per the Singapore dollar. So, cash flow to the parent in US dollar is simple. This Singapore dollar times exchange rate, right? And then also this one here, Singapore dollar times cash flows, and then that's just cash. Copy and paste. So that is the cash flow to parent in US dollar for each year, right? All right. This is the expected cash flow from year 1 through 4. So the year 1 is at the end of this year. So if you are in the first beginning. So now we calculate present value of all this cash flow. So year 1, this $2.7 million divided by 1 plus discount rate is required rate of return 15%, right? So that one here. And second year, $2.7 million divided by 1 plus 0.15, 15%. This time to the second, because this is year 2, right? And then here, this 3.42 million, 1 plus 15% to this time is 3, right? It's in 3 years, 3, right? And then this one divided by 1 plus 0.15, just what is this? To the 4th power, right? 4th power. So this is a present value. Okay, present value. Now, we have present value for all cash flows for the coming 4 years, and net present value. I think you know how to calculate that, right? The initial cash flows, initial cash investment, plus all cash flows, sum of all cash flows, discounted cash flows, present value of all cash flows, and then minus initial investment. So what you do is just sum of all these cash flows and then minus your initial cash flow is $2.23 million. $2.23 million. That is the net present value of all these cash flows from this project. All right. Okay. I think in your textbook or in your the slide, it shows like net cumulative that one here. You don't have to actually net present value. Our focus is the end value, net present value, which is this, which is calculated like this. That is $2.23 million, right? And as you remember, the net present value, the capital budgeting, like technique, one of the most important and most widely used technique, net present value. The criteria, decision criteria is this. If the net present value is positive, is greater than 0, we say that project is profitable and attractive. Okay? As long as NPV is positive, we conclude the project is attractive, profitable. So we have $2.23 million. That's the way positive. It's a pretty good project. So our conclusion is this is profitable and attractive. That's our conclusion. All right. We are going to use the same cash flow for analysis 2 here. So the same here, and up to this point, we have same thing, right? Same thing. Now, this time, instead of just using one expected exchange rate, we added 2 different scenarios there. Now, here, so when the exchange rate is strong, so strong case scenario, and another one is the exchange rate is weak. So strong scenario, strong Singapore dollar value, and weak Singapore dollar value, right here. So in a strong case, in a strong scenario case, we have this exchange rate for the following 4 years, 0.54, 57, 61, 65. So the process is the same thing, right? This cash flow times exchange rate, and then, well, let's do one more. This cash flow times this exchange rate. So let's now copy and paste. Okay. We have this cash flow to parent in US dollar, right? In US dollar. The above cash flow was in Singapore dollar. Now let's calculate present value. So cash flow divided by 1 plus, and now 15% to the 1. This one is to the 1. All right. And this one is, let's do probably copy and paste, but you have to change this one to second power, and this one to the third power, right? And this one is to the fourth power. So that's the present value, right? So this is discounted over 1 year. This one is discounted over 2 years, and this one is over 3 years. It's discounted over 4 years. And then net present value, sum of our all present value minus this initial investment. We have $4.88 million. It's very strong, positive, very attractive. So under the scenario of strong Singapore dollar, we have this strong high, net present value. Now, let's think about the other case, weak scenario. Our exchange rate is 47 cents, 45 cents, 40 cents, and 37 cents over the next 4 years. All right, and same thing. So our cash flow in Singapore dollar, and then we discount it as 15%, 15% over 1 year period. And then copy and paste. Then we have to change this one to, this one goes to second power. This one goes to third power. And this one goes to fourth power. That's a discounting. And this is our cash, the present value, right? Present value. Wait a second. Cash flow to parents. No. Cash flow to parents. Wait. What did I do? Oh, we have to do this cash flow first. Just a moment. We have to calculate this one times this one here, and then copy and paste. That's the first, our cash flow in US dollar first, and then calculate present value. This one over, you know what? Actually, we can copy and paste above there. Copy and paste. See? Right? So, because we did exactly the same procedure here. So this is present value. And then to calculate the NPV, sum of present value minus this initial investment there. Okay, look at this one. When the Singapore dollar is weak, is projected to be weak in the coming 4 years, our NPV is turned negative there. Now it is not, attractive anymore. It is not profitable anymore, right? So look at this, two additional potential scenario here. So a strong Singapore dollar value in the coming 4 years. We have strong NPVs, right? Substantial positive NPVs. But if we expect, if under the projected like weak Singapore dollar value for the coming 4 years, our NPV turned negative there, right? So if you look at this one here, now this one is exactly sensitivity analysis. Like you put three potential cases. Weak, we have negative cash flows, right? Negative 18,000. Your normal, like the 0.0, the projected 0.0, the previous one, we had $2.23 million. And then in the strong case here, is we have the $4.88 million here. So we can see the potential like output under three different scenarios. That's why it is called scenario analysis, right? The sensitivity of our output, final output, to the two different exchange rates. Okay, now, even though the text does not show this one, we made this one is the conclusion of the sensitivity analysis, but we can do some additional things, right, on our own. So weak Singapore dollar and normal strong case. Suppose we can get the reasonable, rational probability possibility of each case. Like, there's a 20% chance of weak Singapore dollar, or 50% chance of normal Singapore dollar, like 0.50 for 4 years, and strong cases, 30% chance of strong cases as shown above. If this one is our reasonably, rationally projected probability for each case, then we can successfully, we can nicely combine this result. You know, yeah, under the weak value, we have the negative 18,000 NPV. Under the normal, we have 2.23 million, and strong 4.88 million NPV. And we managed to get our reasonable probability for each case. In this case, we can combine this one. You can calculate weighted average. So what is that? 20% chance of getting negative and 50% chance of getting 2.23 million and 30% chance of getting 4.88 million. So that is the weighted average, right? Weighted average of this one here. That is our best projected, NPV under this scenario. So our best expected NPV would be $2.57 million NPV. Okay, all right. You see that? All right, this is a summary. This last stage is not, shown on the textbook or the scenario on the textbook. Okay, but we can conclude this way. It's a nice conclusion. All right, so we did the simple, straightforward one. Second, we did like under 3 different scenarios, right? Strong, normal, weak, and then I showed you how we can conclude this one. Now, third one. This one is, look at this, multinational corporate budgeting. When a portion of expected cash flows are hedged using a forward contract and at the forward rate of 48 cents. Let's go this way. Now, here. This one was our cash flow from our business operations, and including salvage value. So if you look at the textbook, they made a mistake there. Textbook is not this way. Textbook assume everything 4.4 million or something, right? So, but that's not right. That's not right. So I'll stick to this cash flow that we have been using this one here. Look at this. We use this one here, right? From the same business operations, we have the same cash flow there. Now here, these are all right, in Singapore dollar, and then exchange rate in the future, in 1 year, 2 years, 3 or 4 years, we have no idea what's going to happen. The best thing we can do, we could do, was to estimate the best expected exchange rate, right? 0.50, 0.50, 0.50. That was our best expected exchange rate there, right? But so still this one is uncertain, right? Uncertain. So because of this uncertainty in exchange rate for the future, the multinational corporation, they may take additional step. They may take, they may want to hedge some portion of this cash flows. How do you hedge that? Using forward contract, right? If you get into forward contract for some part of this cash flow, that portion will be certain at least. So I told you multinational corporation, they hate this risk, this uncertainty. So they will, they probably want to hedge some part of this cash flows through forward contract. So let's see. hedge it this one, like if they decide to hedge 4 million Singapore dollar using, forward rate of 48 cents, forward rate. So 40 million for all 4 years and hedge it at the forward contract at 48 cents. The rest is expected. I mean, I'll just apply the same one. Yeah. So hedged cash flow will be 4 million and unhedged cash flow will be the rest, 1.4 million, 1.4 million, 2.84 million Singapore dollar, 15.56 million Singapore dollar. So that one will be converted at this expected exchange rate, right? So let's do that. Hedged cash flow is simple. This, forward rate times hedged amount, right? So you can copy and paste there. So 1.92 million dollar is the hedged one. That means that's for sure amount, certain amount. There's no uncertainty because it was hedged at the forward rate of 48 cents. Now, the rest is unhedged. Unhedged is 1.4 million and then converted into the 50 cents. And then same way here, right? So that's how you calculate. Unhedged at the 50 cents, unhedged at 50 cents. You get this. So total cash flow in US dollar is this one plus this one. All right. Okay, that's the total cash flow to the US parent company. But this cash flow and the other cash flow, like this cash flow, are different. It's quite different because the part of this cash flow are hedged and certain amount in the cash flow. They're different. Risk is different. Uncertainty is different, right? So let's calculate present value. This one divided by 1 plus 15% to the 1, right? And this one is this one divided by 1 plus this, 15% to the second. So because this is over 2 years. And this one is this one divided by 1 plus 15% to the third. And this one is this one divided by 1 plus % to the fourth power, right? Okay. By the way, you have this, you got this Excel file on the Bolt, right?
Yeah, it's on Bolt, but it's like not like filled in with like the stuff we go over during class.
Right, right. So you have this the Excel file on Bolt, right? Okay. Right. This morning I had another meeting and another two more meetings and other things to do. It was like hectic morning, so I was concerned. You do have this Excel file on Bolt, all right? So NPV is sum of all this present value minus this initial, right? That's this one is the case when the company, the MNC, decide to hedge part of the cash flow through forward contract, as we know, and then after that, if we calculate NPV, it's like $2 million. It's more realistic and less uncertainty. And $2 million. Again, this is positive and pretty good amount. So their project, this project, we conclude this project is profitable and attractive, right? So this was some examples of multinational the capital budgeting, right? And then we did this one for more uncertainty and for more cases like in hedging. If there's any other factor, you could simply incorporate here and then run this capital budgeting process again. So it's simple. Just if you have any other factor or scenario, other concern, just put it in the scenario and then complete this procedure, and then come up with the NPV NPV, and then use that NPV to make your final decision. All right. I told you today's session will be a short, right? Do you have any question?
Yes, I just have a question. Will you upload this completed Excel file to Bolt as well?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Okay. With solution, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's it. And I hope you enjoyed the class and the semester. I know this pandemic crisis is very highly abnormal, but just keep yourself in shape, right? Both in health wise and everything. Just keep your path straight. Okay, let me stop this one here and stop.